Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and I have just watched the Brazilian Grand Prix, as I'm sure you have too. Otherwise, what would you be doing here? Was this a good race? Yeah, kinda. It was alright. The Interlagos track is fantastic, and I don't really have a lot to say about the quality of the race. Was it amazing? Once again, not really. Was it a terrible race? Well, no, there's been worse in 2023. It's better than the majority of the races we've seen this year. Was it a lot of racing this weekend? Yes, because once again we had the sprint race, the last one for 2023. I still don't like it. I agree with Max Verstappen. They should bin it. I definitely don't agree with Sergio Perez. A reverse grid in Formula 1 is just... it's a bit too low rent. You'll see that in like touring cars, and it's fine. Or even like the lower junior formulas. And it's like, yeah, okay. Even then, I could probably do without it. I know why they do it. The idea is it mixes up the grid. And the faster cars have to come through and you tend to get a bit of action. I don't think it would work in Formula 1. And it just doesn't suit the category, I don't think. And the sprint race itself was, I thought, quite entertaining. Although, once again, it's too long. The gaps between the cars just gets too big. They're way strung out for a sprint race. It just doesn't work for Formula 1. I really hate it. They need a better idea. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, although once again, Verstappen won. And Verstappen won the main race. And that's what, 17 wins plus like four, I think, sprint races. It's an insane number of wins in a year. And it's not just that. When you look at the points, Verstappen now has over 500 points. He hasn't dropped that many points all year. I've trying to work it out in my head before I started this. The most points you can score in a calendar year with 22 races is 620. And Max Verstappen has something like 520 with 2 races to go, which means if he wins both of those with fastest lap, he will have only dropped like 60-70 points all year. That's insane. But another way to look at it is Max Verstappen has more points than the manufacturers in second. Both Mercedes put together are not even close to Max Verstappen's score. Twice as many as Sergio Perez in second. He has 3 times more points than George Russell in 8th. It's an astronomical, unbelievable year for Max Verstappen. He has been unstoppable. It was nice to see Lando Norris give him a little bit of a challenge, really as much of a challenge as Verstappen has had in 2023, and it was actually only just like 2 laps. But at least we got to see something, and Norris is one of the best drivers on the grid, and he is going to take that win eventually, but the Red Bull and Max Verstappen this year, it's just too much. No one else really gets a look in. Like, even the 3 races Max Verstappen hasn't won, he's finished second twice. I mean, the only outlier is the 5th place in Singapore. Every other race has been just dominated by him. For the rest of the field, this was quite a messy race. Quite a few cars retired, mostly with mechanical issues. We did lose Albon and Magnussen at the start when they squeezed Hulkenberg and took each other out. Messy start, but it was no one's fault. It's just the nature of the track and whatnot. We got a bit of a red flag whilst they repaired the barrier. And then when the race restarted, we had Piastri and Ricciardo a lap down, which is a shame because Piastri's been on a good run, but even Ricciardo, great in Mexico, and the AlphaTauri looks transformed. I don't know what they've done to it, but it looks a lot better now than it did at the start of the year. The race itself, there wasn't a whole lot of overtaking, most of it done on DRS, obviously. In fact, I'm not sure we saw an overtake that wasn't on DRS. Tyres played into it a little bit, but for the most part, it was sort of follow the leader, but with huge gaps in between. By the end, I think Yuki Tsunoda in 9th was the top car that wasn't lapped, which is kind of sad. So, as I said, another great win for Max Verstappen. A great job from Lando Norris to finish second once again. Aston Martin seemed to have turned the corner far too late in the year, and 3rd and 5th, great job from those guys, especially Lance Stroll, who... he can do this kind of performance, but it's just too infrequently. So, it's not going to help him much in the championship. He's way behind everyone else, and he's kind of cost Aston Martin 4th place. And that's a great shame for them, because obviously there's a financial reward for finishing ahead of McLaren, and it's tight between the two, and Aston Martin could still do it, but McLaren look really on it as well. So it's going to be a tough fight going into the last 2 races, so there is some importance to keep an eye on, and that's not the only battle we'll be seeing in Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi. Perez in 4th is so close to getting 3rd, but I think he pretty much has secured 2nd in the championship now. Hamilton did not have a good weekend, so Perez pulled away by another 20 points or so. So I was trying to work it out. If Lewis Hamilton won both the final races and got fastest lap in them and got the maximum points he could score, then Sergio Perez would only need to finish 5th in both races to tie him. But I think he would need to finish 4th in one of them to make sure he doesn't lose on countback. Because if Lewis Hamilton wins 2 races, Perez has won 2 races, and therefore it goes down to 2nd places. And I think Hamilton's finished 2nd more than Perez has, possibly. But if he finished 5th in both races, he'd be fine. If he finished 4th in one of them, fine. But obviously, it would also take Lewis Hamilton winning both races and getting fastest lap, and he hasn't done that for a very long time. It's not out of the question, but it's highly unlikely now. And really, if Perez had not no-scored in Mexico, if he'd just finished 3rd even, it'd basically be there. So that's pretty much done and wrapped up. Behind Perez was Stroll, and then Sainz. Ferrari, we disappointed because they're still in a fight with Mercedes, and Mercedes had a bad weekend. Ferrari could have capitalised massively this weekend, and it didn't work out for them. They finished behind the Mercedes in the sprint race, lost out on a couple of points, and Sainz did get a few back, but there's still 20 points between them. So it's going to depend on what happens at Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi. Could still change, and I think finishing 3rd will be a massive disappointment to the team that does end up finishing 3rd. Behind Sainz then was Gasly, I think, who put in a fantastic performance. Like, he just walked past Hamilton. He was on new tyres, he just flew by him. It was brilliant for the Alpine. I think Alpine have struggled this year, but at times they have looked good. They're definitely the best of the teams outside the top 10. So like the 6th best manufacturer, basically. They're behind Aston Martin and McLaren and Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, but they're well ahead of Haas and Williams and AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo. Kind of stuck in no man's land in the middle for Alpine, but it's nice to see Gasly put in performances like this. Tsunoda, as I said, AlphaTauri much rejuvenated. Great performance from him. And Ocon in 10th, decent enough. It's only 4 cars that finished the race outside of the points, which was Sargent put in a very good performance. I can't remember who else. A lot of cars retired. Hulkenberg finished 12th, I think, and then Ricciardo and Piastri. A lot of teams will be very disappointed. Russell having to retire, continuing his dreadful year. He's only finished on the podium once all year. And this is the driver who won his first race last year, beat Hamilton, finished 3rd in the championship, put in some great performances. We just haven't seen that this year, and I'm not sure what it is. Maybe they've gone in a direction that just doesn't suit his driving style. And he has had the majority of the mechanical issues this year. And Mercedes, it used to be rare that they have any, but they've had a few this year, and they've all happened to Russell, which I think that's really affected his championship. But he has also made mistakes. He's crashed a couple of times. Same goes for Leclerc. He's retired from, I think, 4 races, or he's retired and been disqualified, and he failed to start this one. Not his fault. He crashed on a formation lap, but by the time it was like a hydraulics failure or something with the power steering. So it's not his fault, but it's hugely unlucky, and it's hugely costly to Ferrari in the race in the Manufacturers' Championship. Massively disappointing, because he really looked on it this weekend, and if he had been in the race and he had scored points, I could have seen Leclerc in the top 3 very easily, and Ferrari and Mercedes would have been right up close to each other in the Constructors. But I think Leclerc has definitely had the worst luck this year of the Ferrari duo. Again, he has made mistakes, but it's definitely luck at the end of the day. He's had a few mechanical failures. But I think for Leclerc and Russell to be in 7th and 8th in the championship, behind people like Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, I don't think either of them would have expected it. I think they'd have both been expecting, at the very least, top 3. That's what they should be fighting for. They're not even close. They're not going to finish in the top 3. They're probably not going to break into the top 6. I think Leclerc's 20 points, or maybe 20 and a bit, off Sainz in 6th. And it's close. The fight for 4th is in the championship is close. It's Alonso has like 2 points over Norris, who has 3 over Sainz. Those 3 drivers are very close. But I think Leclerc and Russell are just too far away to catch him now. Russell almost definitely. Behind that you have Piastri, who's miles away from those two, and then he's a long way ahead of whoever's behind him, which is, I think, Stroll is fighting the Alpines for 10th in the championship. They're the battles you want to look out for in Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi. You have Lewis Hamilton has slim hopes of finishing 2nd. There's also slim hopes that the cars behind him could catch Hamilton. They would need some good fortune, so they need Hamilton not to score many points, and they need to score loads, and really only, if it's going to happen, it will happen to one of them, and my money would be on Norris. Norris could take 3rd in the championship if he keeps up his level of performances and Mercedes struggle at the last 2 races. Not guaranteed. It would be a massive shock, but it could happen. But the bigger fight in the Drivers' Championship is for 4th. You have Alonso, Norris and Sainz, who are separated by, I think it's only 5 or 6 points. So that'll be interesting. Beyond that, the fight for 10th, I think Stroll's only got a couple more points than the Alpine pair. So those 3 are fighting. And then the lower places, if anyone from like 14th, 15th down gets a decent points finish, they could jump up a few places. But obviously it hasn't really happened for them this year, and they're all pretty terrible. Haas, Alfa Romeo, like outside of Albon, who is pretty secure in like 13th, like everyone else has very few points. Same in the constructors, really. Mercedes versus Ferrari for 2nd, McLaren versus Aston Martin for 4th, and then it's just like, could AlphaTauri catch Williams? Because I think they're only 6 or 7 points behind. They're pretty clear of everyone else. I mean, if another team got a good result, there might be some places switching around between Haas and Alfa Romeo. It's unlikely. So that's really the fights for the last 2 races of the year. There's not a whole lot. If you're only in it for the championship scores at the end of the year, there's not a whole lot of reason to watch the last 2 races. But there is at least something. And obviously, it'll be at Las Vegas, a new track. Could be interesting. Could be complete dog shit. We won't know until it happens. Which it's on a Saturday as well. The race. It's in like 13 days time. It's on the 18th of November. Formula 1 on a Saturday. That's just weird. And then Abu Dhabi is a couple of weeks after that, and then we're done. That's the year just finished. 22 races by the end of November, and that's Formula 2 finished as well. We lost a few championships this weekend as well because they've come to an end. There's not a whole lot of racing to go in 2023, so make sure you subscribe now. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you think about Russell and Leclerc. Who you think is going to get these extra places in the championship? Do you think Hamilton has a chance of catching 2nd? Do you think he's going to get caught for 3rd? Do you think Norris, Sainz or Alonso is going to finish 4th? Tell me which one you think. Whatever. Ferrari versus Mercedes, tell me. Aston Martin, McLaren, tell me. Just give me your predictions for the end of the year, and we'll look at them at the next race. So keep that in mind. I'm definitely interested in seeing what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, as I said, and I'll be back very shortly. I've got a couple of videos in the works, so have a good one.